Hello everyone, this is Akiziel here, and today I'll be reacting to 5-ish minute lore episode 10, Tuska Daemon-Killa by Old Man Reacts. As always, a link to the original video will be in the description box below, and I highly recommend checking out Old Man's channel. He makes wonderful content, which is on my backlog. I'm actually going to try to get through more of that than usual, since I am very far behind. But without further ado, let us get into the video.
The lore delivered in rants are sanctioned by their scholar Progenium as excess rageous. Prolonged exposure can result in loss of IQ, high blood pressure, random outbursts, and blunt force trauma to the skull, resulting in unconsciousness. Please consult your local physician for more information.
I know a bit about Tuska because I watched Arch's video about him previously.
Warboss Tuska Daemon-Killa, the only being in the entire galaxy who undoubtedly received precisely what he always wanted in life, and the only being in the entire galaxy who has and will ever have a truly happy ending. That ending being an eternity of endless bloodshed in the shadow of the Brass Citadel. An Orcoid heaven, if there ever was one. Good on you, Tuska. A toast to your brilliance.
Eating demons to
Tuska's
death.
one of those orcs that bears a lot of explanation. There's a couple of things that you gotta have laid out in front of you to completely understand this magnificent bastard of the... Okay, what's going on? I'm getting some feedback and I'm hearing a lot of stuff in my headset right now. Get the Vox feedback. Get the Vox feedback. Encrypt it. Encrypt it!
Orcs are taking over.
General Doc warning. The views whatever in 5-ish minute lore, the lore delivered in rants are goodish. You humans can lose brain bits, bleed faster, and if you start screaming, I'll crump you. Bring your teeth to the doc for more learning. Music. Try this one. Stop that. Okay, this one. Alright, kids, shut your gobs and listen. We's talking about Tuska Daemon-Killa, and if I'm talking fast, it's because I'm trying to get back to the crumpin'. Tuska was in the warp on his cruiser, the Goreclaw, thinking about crumping the humans when the mech boy in charge of the Gellerfield got crumped by one of the boys because he was a stupid git. If you's a stupid git, the Gellerfield keeps warpy things from coming to the ship and crumping the squigs. I just remember my hair squig. I look just like the Emperor. But some spiky boy crumped it and it started smelling bad, so now I have to wear this hat. Anyway, that's when things got interesting. Bunch of warping things just showed up and the big boss Tuska got his goblins and his claw and went out looking for the crumpin'. Tuska went to the bridge and saw...
Oh, and that's a great unclean one, if I remember correctly. Those, and if I remember correctly, those things can do stuff like shooting their own intestines out at you. You to wrap around you and haul you in.
A warpy thing with the best shinies he ever did see. Big kid with big horns. The warpy thing was crumping his knobs like a bunch of gits, but Tuska showed the warpy thing a proper fight. The warpy thing was dead hard, but Tuska showed that warpy git why the orcs are the bestest. Stupid humies get all gittish when the Gellerfield goes. Zob that! Tuska beat that warpy thing and got him some new goblins. The horns of that thing could hold 4 choppers. Tuska was cunning boss, and he learned some things.
Yeah, because whereas for an Imperial warship, demons coming aboard or it can be a disastrous situation. For orcs, some demons come in while you're traveling through the warp. You can call it some in-flight entertainment.
1. The warpy boys are right on, and that's exactly the thing a right and proper orc wants to crump. B. The warpy things come out when the Gellerfield mech boy is a git, or dead, whatever. And 7. The bestest way to get the bestest fight was to get more Daka and Chop.
Weird Boys plus Daka plus Choppa minus Git Mech Boy equals more warpy things. equals better bash and good shinies. Sound logic.
And weird boys. You hear me gets going, oh, what is a weird boy? Get your listing gear on, get face. The weird boys are like those Yumis that the Emperor eats all the time. I don't know how he's so thin. And the whoopee things liked him for some stupid reason. So when the Gorklaw got back into a non-whoopee place, the big boss Tuska got more ducking boys and loaded up on the weird boys. Then the big boss went back to the warp and crumped the Gitman.
Opens the window to get fresh air. Every other orc on the spaceship. You know, considering how many orc spaceships actually have holes in them that just go out into the vacuum.
And the Gallowfield. Oh, that was a proper fight there. You going to tell them about the plan? Just my story. It's not time for the plan, get face. Anyways, the big boss kept flying in the warp, and the whoopee things kept bringing the scrap to the boys. Everybody was crumping, everybody was fighting, and the whoopee things kept coming. But, soon the whoopee things just stay away. Tuska flew round and round like a git with the Gallowfield turned off, and the whoopee things just didn't want to come no more. Well, that squid ain't gonna hunt. Just...
Well, you see, it's something one thing when you've managed to make demons of chaos actually fear you and avoid you, which makes sense considering what Tuska was doing to them.
That's when the big boss Tuska Daemon-Killa came up with the most cunningest plan ever. If the whoopee gits won't come to the boys gonna come to the whoopee gits. The stupid humies on Cadia just stood there with their mouths open, all goodish when the big boss flew into the system. Them humies had all the docker point at this, weird-looking thing. Stupid gits. Tuska, tell them about the fight on Pro. Shut your gob, Brock. I was just getting to that. I knows what's what.
That's not right. I wanna tell the human kid faces about the blood purse whoopee time.
Shut up, get face, you're spoiling it. This is my fault. The narrator is a kid, you grot. Anyhows, the big boss landed the boys for a dust-up on the moon of Prossen. Prossen! I said it, you gut! The humans left the moon when they couldn't stand up to the boys, and then just watched Tuska bringing more and more boys to Prossen. Then after the moon was for the orcs, the Imperial Navy just watched the boys head straight for the big whoopee thing. Stupid humies just let the boss run on into the fighting. Imagine that. And fighting they did. Tuska led the boys to this place with whoopee things that tried to crump them, but got crumped. The boys went world to world, getting in right and proper scraps. It was a good old time, a right and proper big boss leading the boys to the best fighting ever. But, then they landed on this, red thing. And it, squished when the boys stepped on it. But the whoopee things didn't come to the fighting. How disappointed the boss was. He was kind of irritated.
Well, yeah, this was the one of those demon worlds of Khorne, yeah? They're covered in blood.
There he was, with the boys sitting around, trying to find things to fight, and what nothing to fight. So he just, well, he pointed his shit at the ground and shot it. I don't know. And, the ground, hey, what's that Hume word for, being all Giddish-like? Oh, flit. I don't know what that word means. Whatever. Tuska figured if he couldn't kill whoopee kids, he would crump the planet. He told the warband to hit the ground with the shooters, the choppers, and crump it real good. Oh, that's when the real fighting started.
It's over 5 minutes.
I don't care if it's over 5 minutes, you get. Okay, you human kids, let me set the mood for you.
Hopefully there's not going to be another shootout in the recording studio among the orcs.
The sky began screaming, and the war pigeons came off from the ground with the best goblins you kids could imagine. The boys got to the crumpin', but the boys was stuck in, and the warpinings were right on. And then, from the depths of the warp, from the beaten heart of the planet, this big red mega warping thing came to the scrap. Big git, loads of teeth. This git was a blood press. Tuska and the blood press fought tooth and claw, and the boys was getting crunched something brutal. The press put a stabby thing right to Tuska. The blood press had the boss down, but the orcs are never down, and this git was gonna know it. When the press was gabbing and cheering, Tuska reached up with his claw and grabbed the press right by the shinies between the press's legs and gave them dangly bits a good squeeze. Zog, that press screamed like a Gretchen. Zog and funny it was. Pause.
Yep, because unfortunately, for that demon, one of the strengths that Khorne had given him was not an adamantium ball sack.
So funny when that happens. I need to go find me a human kid. That amuses me. But now we get to the best part. This big warping git was watching and laughing and thought the big boss Tuska was a great proper orc. Khorne, Porn, whatever, he's just a big warping god. His name is Khorne. I know what he's called, you git! Next day, all the boys just woke up, all healed and ready for the crumpet again. And the warpy gits came back too, ready for the scrap. And that's how Tuska went to heaven, you me-gits. And all ever does is wake up and fight, and pile up goblins for the Git throne. Yeah, that's it. That's the podcast. Suck off your gits.
That was a fun watch. Although, unfortunately, none of it was really new information for me because of what I've seen previously. Yeah, from Arch Warhammer. Still interesting though. Oh, it looks like episode 11 is a remake. So, guess I'll continue and see how that one differs from the previous one.
General Medicaid warning. The views expressed in 5-ish minute lore, the lore delivered in rants, are sanctioned by their scholar progenium as excess rageous. Prolonged exposure can result in loss of IQ, high blood pressure, random outbursts, and blunt force trauma to the skull, resulting in unconsciousness. Please consult your local physician for more information.
War Boss Tuska Daemon-Killa, the only being in the entire galaxy who undoubtedly received precisely what he always wanted in life, and the only being in the entire galaxy who has and will ever have a truly happy ending. That ending being an eternity of endless bloodshed in the shadow of the Brass Citadel. An orcoid heaven, if there ever was one. Good on you, Tuska. A toast to your brilliance.
Now, before I dive into this Voxcast about Tuska Daemon-Killa, there's something I have to get out, and this is a disclaimer. If at any point that you believe that I'm exaggerating, if I'm making up something for shock effect or anything like that, I want you to stop the Voxcast, walk into your bathroom, look into your mirror, and say, orcs, until you get it. Because this story is a prime example of why the orcs are absolutely insane. So the grand story of this ridiculous piece of fungus started off kind of like this. Tuska was in his kill cruiser called the Gorejaw when he was flying through the warp, when all of a sudden the Geller field just completely failed. This isn't a surprise considering orc technology is as ramshackle as you can possibly get and is often held together by nothing more than belief and duct tape, if even they have duct tape. For the Gellerfield to fail on board an Imperial ship would be nothing short of a cataclysmic disaster that would have instant and lasting repercussions throughout the ship even if it made it through the event at all. For the orcs, however, the failing of the Gellerfield usually means they're going to have a little bit of fun while they're going through the warp, which is typically a boring process for them. But in this particular instance, it got even more interesting because the thing that boarded the Gorjaw was nothing short of pure horrific. And once Tuska found out there was a creature running around his ship with a bunch of heads that had a bunch of horns, the first thing he did was shout in delight and strap on his power claw, running to the bridge. When he got up there, he decided to engage the very thing that had been slaughtering his crew in single combat. After a rather hectic battle, he won, and he learned two things. One, demons make excellent fighters, and two, they have great trophies. At this point, the gulf between Tuska and your average war boss begins to become apparent, because while most war bosses would go on from that fight, take their trophy, and move on to other warfare, Tuska was built different. When it comes to the nature of a fight, Tuska had just eaten the best ribeye steak he had ever had in his life, and he wasn't about to go back to fighting humans, which would basically be chicken nuggets, when he had that on the menu and knew where to get more. The second that Tuska's ship got back into real space, the first thing that he did was load up on as many guns, choppas, and weird boys as he possibly could. If you don't know what a weird boy is, the weird boy is the orc equivalent of a psyker with all the good and bad that comes with it. The reason Tuska grabbed all the weird boys he could is because psykers appear as a beacon in the warp.
Also, side note for those who don't know, weird boys their brains literally start to bulge out of their skulls, and they function off of raw energy, which also means that if the orcs around them get too excited, then the weird boys can get overloaded, and literally their heads will just explode.
Calls the warp entities to the ship that doesn't have the Gellerfield on, and Tuska knew this. But the difference between a human psyker and an orc psyker is that a human psyker looks like a bonfire in the warp, while the best thing I can say a weird boy resembles is a cocaine-fueled rave party. Once its rather hasty preparations were complete, Tuska re-entered the warp and just immediately took the Gellerfield down and started flying around, fighting anything that came aboard his ship, but he could not find the sort of being that he had initially encountered. In fact, Tuska spent so much time beating up demons in the warp that eventually the demons stopped coming. If that isn't a statement on the orcs itself, I don't know what else to tell you. An entire segment of reality populated by creatures driven purely on instinct to devour everything in their path saw this ship flying through the warp and collectively said, I'm not fucking with that. And because Tuska wanted something decisively good to fight, and because the demons had stopped coming, Tuska decided to go to the demons themselves. And hey, well hell, if you want to go to the demons, there's only one place to go where you know you're gonna find them. When Tuska's fleet broke on the outskirts of the Cadian system, all of Cadian High Command effectively shit their britches because not a single soul thought that anyone would attack trying to get into the Eye of Terror. But then again, orcs. By the time the Imperial authorities could actually react, Tuska was already landing troops on Prozan, a moon orbiting Cadia. And due to nothing more than pure disbelief, he actually took the moon. But as soon as he did that, he left the moon and went straight for the Eye of Terror, with everyone in the Imperial Command watching him go and wondering what the hell was going to happen. They didn't deign to stop him because why the hell would they stop a full wall of orcs heading into the Eye of Terror? You're solving two problems with one event. Because honestly, the worst thing that would happen from a wall of orcs heading into the Eye of Terror was all the orcs are gonna die, and it's gonna distract chaos for an indeterminate amount of time. Win-win scenario for the Imperium. And now that he was in the Eye of Terror...
You know, since there's that whole thing about you can't see purple orcs because it's a stealthy color, I kind of wonder then. So if a Death Skull slugger boy goes and kills someone and blood splatters on him, if somehow the blood were to actually mix the blue paint that he covers himself with for luck and turn purple, just imagine a bunch of Death Skulls turning invisible in the middle of a fight.
Tuska was the happiest orc imaginable, hopping from planet to planet and slaughtering anything he ran across, and the fact he was losing manpower at a rate that even a Krieg's guardsman would flinch at, he couldn't care less. And finally, he landed on a strange world that didn't seem to have any warp creatures on it. Normally, the second he started landing forces, a whole bunch of demons would show up and start fighting him tooth and nail, but on this planet, nothing appeared. Eventually, in an act born out of sheer frustration, Tuska pointed at the ground beneath his feet and shot. The ground flinched and started to bleed. And then Tuska had his next brilliant idea, and he ordered his entire remaining wall to point their weapons and start chopping and shooting at the ground. Unbeknownst to Tuska, he had landed on one of Khorne's planets and had decided to piss it off. At that point, demons started flooding up from the ground in waves that even Tuska couldn't have imagined, and in charge of them was one that was called the Blood Prince.
Damn, nature, you scary!
As Tuska gleefully skipped off to battle with the Blood Prince, his entire wall was being slaughtered around him, and after a short yet decisive fight, the Blood Prince impaled Tuska to the ground. But the Orc War Boss was in no way, shape, or form out of the fight, and when the Blood Prince started cheering and gloating, Tuska reached up with his power claw, took hold of the family jewels of the Blood Prince, and gave them a nice and delicate orc version of a squeeze. In other words, Tuska Daemon-Killa had just crushed the Blood Prince's balls. Now, I'm sure Khorne has heard many delightful sounds over the years, but I'm not sure he's heard anything like that. And he thought the orcs at that point were just frickin' dandy, and the next morning he resurrected all of them, alongside all the demons they had fought. So this is how Tuska is gonna spend eternity, being resurrected every single day to fight the same battle that he did the day before, which was the most awesome battle of his life. This is literally heaven for an orc. But here's a weird prospect for you. Every single time an orc fights, they get bigger and stronger. Every single time an orc fights something stronger than them, that growth potential is exponential. It is not uncommon to see an orc put on several inches and several pounds of muscle mass when facing down an opponent, especially if that orc is already hyped up. Tuska has been fighting things bigger and stronger than him for centuries at this.
Oh, I see where this is going. Since he gets reborn at the end of each day to do the battle again, potentially he's just been getting bigger and stronger over and over and over every day since then for who knows how long.
This point. So the question is, how big is Tuska Daemon-Killa now? The answer to that, I'm not sure any Imperial citizen actually wants to know. But at this point, Tuska Daemon-Killa could be the size of an apartment complex.
Maybe he's the size of a squig-off by now. That was actually more fun to watch than the previous one. Although I did still quite like the idea of the previous one and being told by through the orc perspective. So that's been 5-ish Minute Lore episode 11, Tuska Daemon-Killa, the remake by Old Man Reacts. Thanks for watching with me, and if you enjoyed it, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll be signing off. I wish you all a wonderful day.